Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, our podcast from Catalan News. My name is Beliaeva, and today we're celebrating Sant Jordi. Sant Jordi, or Saint George, is Catalonia's patron saint, and April 23rd is the Catalan version of Valentine's Day, where Catalans celebrate love, roses, romance, and also books. On today's podcast, we will explain what makes this day so special and why people gift each other roses and books, and we also will join the festivities out on the streets of Barcelona. Today, we are actually recording live from the bookshop Backstory in the heart of Barcelona, and later on in today's podcast, we will also talk to the owners, Abby and Kate. Today, I'm joined by everyone from the Catalan News team. Hello, Lorcan, Doherty, Gerard, Escaich, Folc, Oriol, Escudé, Cillian Shields, and Ona van Dyck.
Hi, Leah.
Hi, Leah.
Hello. How's it going?
Great, how are you doing?
Always good, yeah. Sant Jordi, it's always a lovely day to be out and about in the city.
And a crowded podcast.
Yeah, probably one of the busiest we've ever had.
And in a lovely setting too. This bookshop is it's beautiful.
I was going to say the same, yeah. Like, amazing selection of... it's the first time I've stepped foot in this shop. It's new, obviously, in the city. And yeah, very impressed so far.
For sure. Well, let's get started then. First things first, Lorcan, can you explain what Sant Jordi is all about?
Yeah, well, you mentioned St. Valentine's Day, which is obviously the go-to comparison, isn't it, for people not familiar with Sant Jordi, because they share a lot of things in common. They're about love and romance, but they're not really exactly the same. A few differences. Who buys presents? With Valentine's Day, I think it's very much a couple's holiday, you know. It's husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend, but it's always couples, you know. Whereas with Sant Jordi, it's not really as strict. You know, you can get roses. Gerard was telling me he got a rose for his mum this morning, as rightly so. But, you know, you can get them for friends and stuff as well. And the gifts themselves as well, Valentine's Day, flowers, chocolate, but the big difference with Sant Jordi is, of course, books, which I think is just a wonderful thing as well, that people get books for each other. There's a lovely story behind Sant Jordi, a legend that we're going to hear about later. But the main difference for me is the atmosphere, the visibility of it. You go out and about in Barcelona or any Catalan town or city, and the streets are full of people browsing. There's bookstalls on the streets. And it's a really lovely atmosphere.
And all of you went out to different parts of Barcelona and you soaked in the atmosphere and talked to international authors, to bookshop owners, and just people on the streets. And Ona and Gerard, where did you go?
Well, we went to Passeig de Gràcia, like Casa Batalló. We saw there all the bookstalls set up in the street and all the roses and people and a lot of tourists as well.
Let's hear how that went.
So we are currently in front of Casa Batlló, one of the landmarks from Passeig de Gràcia here in Barcelona city center. And Ona, this is the first time that you are here in Sant Jordi.
Yeah, it's right. It's the first time. It's quite crazy to be here for the first time at Sant Jordi.
And yeah, obviously Casa Batlló has been dressed up with roses, but if you turn around, what do you see?
It's here full of book stands. It's also full of tourists taking pictures of Casa Batalló, but at the same time they're also buying here their roses. There are people, locals, like buying their books. It's like full of people at the moment, so it's quite crazy.
We continued to walk down Passeig de Gràcia Boulevard and we just reached Gran Via Avenue with Passeig de Gràcia. It's a little bit less crowded than up there, right, Ona?
Yeah, currently, well, where we are, it's not as crowded as it was before at Casa Batalló, so it's good.
It's good, you like this. However, is it as you expected? Because it's the first time you're here, like, did you expect Sant Jordi to look like this?
Well, I expected it to be busier, but I assume it will be busier in the afternoon. So now it's not exactly as I expected it, but I did expect there to be like a lot of roses and books, and definitely those expectations are being met, so it's good. Yeah.
Well, we said it was less crowded, but we were wrong.
Yeah, no, we were wrong. We walked 50 meters and it was super crowded suddenly.
Oh, so, yeah, we just ran into a bookstore here with plenty of author signing.
Yeah, there are like 6 or 7 authors signing right now, and there's basically a whole crowd in front of it waiting to get their book signed. So it's quite crazy now, and nobody can really move. So it's quite, it's busy.
Welcome to Sant Jordi.
Thank you.
Now you can see more roses, more books, more people. You can see the days going on and people are enjoying Sant Jordi.
Yeah, it's very crowded right now, so it might be time for us to get out of here and let's see what's happening in other parts of Barcelona.
Thanks, Gerard. Nona, I'm less than a kilometer away from you in Arc de Triomphe, one of the most popular places in the city. And here the atmosphere is very similar. Lots of roses, lots of books, lots of happy people. It was a bit quiet in the morning, but as the day goes on, more and more people is joining in the festivities. We found many tourists and also some locals and asked them how they feel about Sant Jordi.
A lot of flowers, roses, and we don't know because we are not from here, but the many people that are buying roses and we don't know what is happening.
We know it's a holiday, but we're not really
Sant
sure.
Jordi, something like that, right?
From what I understood, it's like they are celebrating a day of the literature and of the love. So I think that's a very beautiful combination. I was trying to find some books and some roses for my roommates and for my best friend.
I arrived here in 1999 on a Sant Jordi day, but I didn't know it was Sant Jordi. I arrived right over here at the Estació del Nord, and I went walking. It was 6 a.m. and people were setting up stands with books, and I thought, oh, I love this city, I want to live here.
We came to Barcelona because we've heard so many wonderful things, and we knew that there was a festival going on the 23rd that we wanted to participate in. So if you look, I was given a rose that'll last forever this way.
I love reading books, but I don't have a couple right now, so it's like a mixed feeling. I bought a rose for my mother.
Thanks to everyone who spoke with us. Lorcan went to Hibernian Books. How's it going there?
Thanks, Oriol. I'm in Gracia in Hibernian, second-hand English bookshop, and I'm speaking to one of the owners here. Hello, Vicki.
Hello.
Tell us about this bookshop.
This is an English language bookshop. We sell books in English only. Most of our stock is second-hand, but we also have quite an amount of books that are overstocks, which are sort of new, or actually new, but not the latest editions, and a small selection of books that are new.
The name I can't help but notice as an Irishman. I guess there's an Irish connection, Hibernian.
There is, yes. The other owner of the bookshop is Ray, and he's from Dublin, from Rathmines specifically. And when we first opened the bookshop in 2004, we were first looking for small premises because we didn't even know where we were going to get the books from. And coincidentally, a bookshop in Rathmines, in his area of Dublin, was closing down. So we bought loads of books from there, looked for bigger premises, and that's where the books came from. So yeah, Hibernian comes because the books came from Ireland.
Sant Jordi is obviously the big day in Catalonia when it comes to books. You being a bit different from most bookshops in that you stock books in English, still a big day for you, I imagine.
It is quite a big day. I'm sure it's not as big as it is for Catalan and Spanish books, but yeah, we do quite well in Sant Jordi.
And who comes in here generally? Is it people who are native English speakers, maybe who've moved to Barcelona, or is it, locals who come in and want to find some books in English?
It's not only native English speakers, but people that speak or read in English, and also Spanish people that read in English. And we get a fair amount of tourists also when it's more tourist season. But I think it's mostly people that live here, also in the rest of Catalonia. And we sell online too to some place in Spain.
And have you ever tried to bring this Catalan tradition of Sant Jordi to people that you know elsewhere, for example, in Ireland?
No, not really. It's the thing about Sant Jordi, it's too busy to be doing anything else than being in the stall and in the shop. It's crazy. You're non-stop all day working. It'd be nice to bring it over, but we're always here. I never have a chance to go to other bookshops on Sant Jordi because I'm always running mine.
I better let you go then. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you. So, as I said before, one of you talked to some international authors, and that was you, Cillian. How did that go?
I did indeed. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was great. Out and about. So obviously, the vast majority of authors that you see out on the streets are usually Catalan and Spanish. So we wanted to specifically go out and find some authors coming from abroad to celebrate this day. So we spoke to Hernan Díaz, who was born in Buenos Aires but moved with his family at the age of 2 to Sweden and also spent a lot of time in the United States. We also spoke with Sohn Won-pyung, who's from Korea, who's very popular at the moment. But first, we spoke with Monika Zgustová, who was born in Prague but has actually lived in Barcelona for the past 30 years. So she's a little bit more familiar with Sant Jordi.
Sounds great. Let's hear what she had to say.
I'm still impressed. Like every time, it really is like a feast, like a party for me, you know. And I think this is like the most beautiful day. Writing is something like anonymous. You do it alone in your office, at home, or at the writer's residency. But, you know, to have contact really with readers is amazing, especially, you know, your fans come here, so it gives you like a boost of energy, you know, they tell you how great you are and how they like to follow you.
Well, it's just totally amazing because I've never imagined that I could come overseas with my book, which is written in Korean, and could move to other countries and move other people's minds, and it's so unbelievable, and I'm so thrilled. It's my first time to visit the book festival, and I actually didn't know it was so huge and so lovely because of the combination of rose and book is so fantastic, and I think it represents some spirit of Catalonia. I'm so happy to be here.
This is my first Sant Jordi, and I cannot believe this exists. It's absolutely thrilling and breathtaking to see a city taken over by fervent and passionate readers. I'm learning about the book world here in Barcelona and the Catalan world of writers, which is so rich. It's like a literary rave in a way. It's amazing. I'm so thrilled. I have never seen anything like this. It's amazing. You're very lucky to live in a city that supports book culture so intensely.
All right, well, thanks again to all of you. That sounds like so much fun. And now we've heard how people celebrate Sant Jordi. But the tradition actually comes from this old Catalan legend that involves a dragon, a knight, and also a princess. So Gerard, as one of our Catalan natives, can you explain to us what is the legend of Sant Jordi? Where does all this come from?
It's all based on a hungry dragon which was terrorizing a Catalan town southern of Barcelona, Montblanc. And residents of that town, they needed to sacrifice cattle for the dragon to be fed and for it not to attack the town. And one day they ran out of cattle, so they decided to sacrifice a young maiden.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so you can compare cattle and young maidens. Like, it's not very up to date.
No.
And surprisingly, the king's daughter was the chosen one.
Oh,
so,
no.
Plot twist. Plot twist for everyone. They were
how romantic.
Oh. Yeah. And obviously, while the princess was almost getting into the cave of the dragon, Jordi, a knight, appeared on a white horse and fought the dragon, and he won, obviously. And from the blood, it started to appear a rose plant. He cut a rose with his sword and gave it to the princess.
That's nice. That's beautiful.
And they all lived happily.
Well, that depends. That depends on who you ask. Sometimes they say he all lived happily ever after, I say. In my childhood stories, he always disappeared.
Yeah, it's
he
kind
made
of
a little bit of
an
roasting.
interesting twist,
Jordi
no?
disappeared.
Because
Jordi disappeared.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
you always think that a fairy tale ends with the two people getting married and living happily ever after. But in this case, the knight came in, saved the princess, and then just disappeared.
He just left.
Okay, so that is why Catalans, they give each other roses. That's at least how everything started. But Ona, can you tell me, how many roses are you supposed to give to your loved ones on Sant Jordi?
Yeah, so traditionally you only give one rose. And actually, like, originally it was only the man giving it to the woman, but now it's quite like neutral. So women give it to men give it to women. It's not dependent on gender anymore. But it's also mostly between couples, like on Valentine's Day. But now it's also happening between like friends, family, colleagues, people you just know. Like, you just give it to anyone. And many people believe that you can only give one rose because it stands for one love.
Okay.
So if you give a bouquet to like your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your partner, you're basically admitting to cheating or loving a lot of people.
Okay.
Or at least that's what some people think. And then there's also like the belief that the wheat ear of the rose stands for fertility. So some couples might give it for that reason to each other.
Okay. So from now on, if you were thinking about giving a bouquet of roses to your partner, maybe just give one.
And the money save you can spend on books.
That's true. Exactly. That's a very good
point. It's the
point.
economic option.
And continuing the conversation about roses, obviously we have talked about all these stalls with all these roses everywhere. But how many roses are actually sold every year for Sant Jordi, Oriol?
So this year, florists expect to sell 7 million roses. That's 20% more than last year. In fact, in Barcelona alone, they expect to make 30 million euros just in roses.
Oh, wow. So where do all these roses come from? Because I would think that the roses here in Catalonia, they come from here.
Yeah, no, they don't. And this absolutely shocked me. From the 7 million roses sold this year, only 50,000 will be produced here in Catalonia. Most of them come from Ecuador and Colombia. Colombia is actually the biggest flower seller in the world, as well as from the Netherlands.
All right, and is there any way of telling the difference between the roses that come from Catalonia and roses that come from abroad?
No, if you're not an expert, they know how to tell the difference, but this year there's something different that has changed from previous years, and it's that roses produced here this year will be slightly smaller than usual because of climate change.
Oh, wow. Okay. So climate change is also affecting the Catalan roses for Sant Jordi.
Yeah, because here we don't have great weather for that. It needs to be really cold in the winter, and we didn't get much cold this winter. It was a pretty hot winter, and that made roses smaller.
All right, and this climate change actually has also affected the people who are producing these growers. As I understand, there's actually only one grower left here in Catalonia, isn't that right?
Yeah, it is, and it's probably the last, maybe, because they don't have anyone to take over the business, and climate change is affecting their crop and the roses and the quality of them, so it maybe is the last year they grow roses.
All right, so it's also getting harder to grow them. Okay, so if you don't know what to do with your life, maybe one thing to do is to become a rose grower here in Catalonia, since there's only one left. Maybe that could be a possible business opportunity. So a recommendation for our listeners.
And actually, apart from buying local roses, there's people who's trying to buy more sustainable roses, because getting roses that come from other countries is not the most sustainable thing. And one thing that people's doing is just buying just rose plants directly, just the plant.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Then you can keep them alive.
Yeah,
you will have
exactly.
roses, well, forever, basically.
Exactly. And if you do get one of the regular roses, I have some tips for you on how to keep it fresher for more days.
Okay, because I've heard something about bleach, but that's not exactly what you were trying to tell me,
No,
right?
That's not doing bleach. Just change the water every 2 or 3 days and cut the stem in diagonal.
In diagonal.
Bigger surface area.
Ah, bigger surface area. Okay, that's a great tip. All right, thanks for that. And so far, we've talked about how people, they gift each other roses. But as we talked about in the beginning of this podcast, another huge part of Sant Jordi is that people, they give each other books. And I mean, we are now at a bookshop. So where does that tradition come from, Cillian?
Yeah, so this tradition actually goes back to more than 100 years ago. 101 years ago, in fact. So it started in the early 1920s when the writer, journalist and publishing house owner Vicent Clavel y Andrés, he was the head of the Chamber of Books. He basically proposed to create a book day to promote reading and literature and culture. And initially, funny enough, it was held on October 7th, which was coinciding with the birthday of Cervantes, the legendary Spanish author from the 17th century. And then a couple of years later, in 1930, it was actually changed then from October to April 23rd, today, to coincide with the birthday and death day, coincidentally, of William Shakespeare. And then in 1995, the World Book Day was promoted by UNESCO, because today is obviously World Book Day, not just Sant Jordi.
Yeah, it's not just a Catalan thing, it's a international thing.
Like we heard from the international authors, they were blown away by what they've seen today, yeah.
And we are now joined by Abby and Kate, who are the owners of Backstory Bookshop. So first of all, before we start, thank you so much again for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. The bookstore is incredible.
Oh, thank you for coming.
And I read a little bit about your backstory, but maybe our listeners haven't. So can you explain, how did you get started? When did you open?
So Abby and I met, 2.5 years ago, and we were at an exercise class in the park. And one day, very serendipitously, I was saying, I think I need to do something different. I'm not sure I want to continue as an academic. And she said, I am doing a business, a startup by myself. It gets very lonely. Sometimes I think about opening a bookstore. And I said, let's go for coffee. And so it really, truly was that easy. And we went for coffee the next week, and we kept talking about it for the better part of a year. And then finally we just said, okay, let's do it. So I did a career switch, and she wrapped up her business, and we'll embed it in this one. She was selling English books, book subscriptions for kids. So it kind of was a natural segue into this.
That sounds great. I mean, it's a really inspiring story, because sometimes, you just need to make this big change in your life. So congratulations on making that change. When did you open the bookshop?
So we opened on February 8th, correct?
Yep.
So we've been open just basically a little over 2 months. We've been in business, 3 months now. Yeah.
Almost 3.
Almost
yeah.
3, yeah.
And did you expect the reception that you received?
No, we are... I'm without words, basically, of how the reception has been from the community, from neighbors, from friends, from extended friends, tourists. It's just been overwhelming, the fabulous, positive, welcoming response.
And what is your book recommendation?
My go-to book recommendation is called Americana, and it's an immigration story, it's a love story, it's a coming-of-age story of a woman. It's written by a Nigerian woman author, and it's I read it probably once a year for the past 10, 15 years.
Thank you so much, Abby and Kate of Backstory, for speaking with us. Thank you so much for offering us this space today. I wish you all the best on your bookstore, and a happy Sant Jordi.
Thank you.
Well, we just heard Abby and Kate's recommendations for a book, but let's hear from the team. So, Lorcan, what is your book recommendation for this Sant Jordi?
My book recommendation for Sant Jordi 2024 is Barcelona Dreaming by Rupert Thompson. He's an English writer. He lived in Barcelona for several years around the time the book is set, which is just before the 2008 financial crash. And you really notice that when you're reading the book, because it's full of references to towns, the barrios, neighbourhoods, streets, that if you're familiar with Barcelona, you can really picture where things are happening. It's one that's also worth rereading, I think, because when I got to the end, I was like, oh, right, so now I've seen what happens from that perspective, and then you can try and link things all together.
All right, great. And what about you, Anna? Which book would you recommend?
So I chose Cathedral of the Sea by Ildefonso Falcones, who is a Catalan writer actually, and he writes a lot of historical fiction about Barcelona. And this one is from the 14th century, and it's about the building of the Catedral del Mar, which is the Santa Maria Basilica, I think it is. And you basically follow like a guy who is not born in Barcelona, but he moves here as a baby, starts at the bottom of the social ladder and climbs up. And it's really fun to read and historically quite accurate, I think.
A very good classic.
Yes, indeed.
And Gerard, what about you?
Well, mine was a recommendation from my father, and I literally devoured the book in one day, or a little bit longer, but it felt like. It's La Chica Nueva, or The New Girl, by American novelist Daniel Silva. And it's a little bit based on real events, because it talks about the crown prince from Saudi Arabia, which some of us know he turns out to be in the book, the alleged killer of a journalist, but turns out the book it's based on his daughter being disappeared, and they need to find her, and the crown and the daughter are in danger. So a little bit of a novel and thriller.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. What about you, Oriol?
My recommendation is When I Sing Mountains Dance by Catalan writer Irene Solà. I loved this book when it came out in 2019. There's a second part now, but only this one is translated into English, and it has an excellent English translation. It's a captivating book. It's really beautiful. I love how everyone gets a voice. The mushrooms, the clouds, the mountains, the dog, everyone. It's set in the Catalan Pyrenees as well. And yeah, just give it a go. It's really nice.
Great recommendation. And what about you, Cillian?
I have Único Grande Amore by Toni Padilla. He is a Catalan journalist, predominantly football, sports journalist, but also culture writer as well. And Único Grande Amore, his book it's more of a travel book, really, but it's using the excuse of football to speak about all sorts of different towns, be they huge cities, Milan, Torino, Rome, Naples, or even tiny little towns that I'd never heard of before, all just travelling through Italy. The premise is he's taking public transport, usually trains, to all different corners of the whole country, and just speaking about what makes every place unique, speaking a bit about the history, the culture, and a little bit about the football as well. I will warn you, though, that it is a very dangerous book because it's going to make you want to travel to every single square inch of the boot. And it is also only available in Spanish, so it is one for the Spanish readers, but an absolute gem of a book.
Great.
And what about you, Leia?
Well, I would like to recommend a classic, which is Homage to Catalonia from George Orwell. I bought it the first time when I was 19, when I just came to Barcelona for the first time. And since then, I have read it many, many times over again. It's one of my favorites. And I think it's just a great book.
Great, yeah. I've read it too, yeah. Very, very enjoyable. Enlightening as well. I read it at a young age when I was really studying the political kind of atmosphere of the early 20th century in this country. And yeah, very interesting, insightful.
I think so too. All right, we've talked about books, we've talked about roses, we've talked about the legend, and now it's time for the Catalan phrase of the week. Ona, what is it this time?
Well, this time it's something related to Sant Jordi. I would say it's the best phrase you need to know this week, and it's Hi havia una vegada, which is the start of every story, every fairy tale. It's once upon a time.
Hi havia una vegada. And that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening. Please do subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcast if you haven't already. Thanks again to Abby and Kate of Backstory Bookshop for speaking with us. Thanks to all of you from the team, Gerard, Oriol, Lorcan, Cillian, and Ona.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
And since we published this episode early, there will be no new episode on Saturday, so you will have to wait patiently until May 4th for a new one. On behalf of all of us, I'm Leah Beliaeva, wishing you a great Sant Jordi and a great week. Fins aviat. Adeu.